My name is Funk, and I'm just your average guy. I know this because the 20 of us all look nearly identical. My forehead is broad and proud. My eyebrows grow thick and dark, giving me a unique yet recognizable appearance. My teeth, all 13 of them, are short and blunt, perfectly suited for chewing. I'm pretty tall for a human, which I know because I frequently hit my head on the cave entrance. I always wear the trendiest animal skins, as you can probably tell. What a prime specimen of prey I am. I'm a pterodactyl miner by trade, and I truly love my job. You haven't really lived until you've gone after a 500-pound flying lizard with nothing but a sharp stick. The eggs are incredibly valuable, the meat is tender and juicy, and the skin? It's smoother than a baby stegosaurus's behind. My job allows me to provide a good life for my wife and me. My wife, my beautiful Fuji, though I lovingly call her Fug, could grace the cover of Pentcave magazine. She's got long, dark, tangled hair on her head, under her arms, down her back, and even between her legs. And unlike her sister, she actually has 2 breasts. But Fug's best feature by far is her backside, so wide it could span 3 axe handles. Not that I know what an axe is. We met one fateful day at the river. When her head popped out of the water with a trout clenched in her teeth, I knew right then she was my one and only. I'd never seen such a massive trout. She was everything I'd ever dreamed of in a woman. The water glistening on the hairs of her upper lip stirred something primal in me. I was speechless. Not surprising, since no one had ever figured out how to speak back then. I walked up to Fug and gazed into her mesmerizing eyes. One brown, one blue. They made me dizzy, though that might have been the smell of wet yak fur radiating off her. Either way, I was hooked. I knew this delicate yet pungent creature had to be mine. Later that night, on our honeymoon, we made sweet, passionate love for the first time. That's when I realized we were perfect for each other, destined to endure through the ages. We bought a stylish cave in a cozy, gated community in the hills. You've probably seen it, it's just past the trail near the big rock, by the old tree right next to a pond. Sure, the gate was down, but if you were being chased by a saber-toothed tiger in the middle of the night, you wouldn't stop to ask dumb questions like that. Our life together was perfect. We shared so much: long walks, drinks from the same muddy puddles, and a mutual love of food, often from the same bone. Life couldn't have been better. Our sex life was phenomenal, too. We'd do it 10, sometimes 12 times a day, or at least I would. Sometimes, I wasn't sure if she even noticed. Recently, though, something has started to nag at me. I'm not a dumb guy. My brain's far bigger than a walnut, which is more than I can say for most of the people I know. Still, I've noticed Fug acting differently, more distant and withdrawn. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I decided to stay alert for other signs. The first thing that tipped me off was our dwindling sex life. It's gotten to the point where we're only doing it 6 or 7 times a day. I mean, if you had to cut back that much, wouldn't you suspect something was up, too? And then there was the lack of communication. Sure, she's never been able to talk, but still, what's that? You want to tell this story? No? Thought so. Anyway, as I was saying, the lack of communication only fueled my suspicions. Or maybe it was just the constipation, it's hard to say. Either way, I felt out of sorts. If you've read as many stories about cheating wives on cave walls as I have, you'd know the signs to look for. I was certain Fug was up to something. All the usual clues were there. The only question was whether I was clever enough to catch her in the act. The next day, I had a business trip scheduled out of town. Fug observed me intently as I packed my especially sharp stick. I couldn't help but wonder how long it would take after I left before she was enjoying herself with another man. As I made my way toward the cave entrance, Fug didn't say a single word. Stop. Don't say it. I already know she can't talk. If you'd let me tell the story instead of mocking Fug, we'd actually get somewhere. That day marked the beginning of pterodactyl season. Luck was on my side, and I quickly hit my limit, which gave me the perfect excuse to head home early and catch Fug off guard. Maybe I could catch her in the act. Walking back into our cave, I made an effort to keep as quiet as possible. I peeked cautiously around the corner of our bedroom, the only room in the cave, and saw Fug pulling burrs from his hair. The only time I'd ever seen her do that was after we'd made love. Even then, I had no solid proof. It made me want to scream. What I needed was surveillance, a way to spy on her without being caught. The next day, I punched a hole in the roof right above our bed. The view was perfect. I could see every inch of the fur skins. If Fug had a secret lover, I'd catch them from above. If she noticed the hole, she never said anything about it. Personally, I thought it was a brilliant plan. The next day, I set up a fake business trip. While Fug believed I was out of town, I planned to camp on the roof of the cave, watching her every move. I was determined to catch her in the act. That evening, I noticed Fug bending over repeatedly, clearly trying to entice me. The idea of being with her after she'd been with another man made my skin crawl. It took all my willpower just to sleep with her 3 times that night. It was torture, pure agony, and my heart wasn't in it. Fug never admitted to cheating, as I'd hoped she might. Her complete lack of remorse was tearing me apart. Or maybe it was the ribs we'd eaten for dinner. If only she could confess her infidelity and apologize, I thought. But no, she couldn't even manage that. Stick to the story. As planned, I left the cave the next day but quickly doubled back and climbed onto the roof. I didn't have to wait long. Peering through the hole I'd made earlier, I saw Fug removing her fur clothes. At first, I was puzzled. Her fur always gave me something to hold onto when I piled on from behind. But as I watched her bare body, I realized there was more than enough hair on her back and rear to serve the same purpose. Moments later, a man I'd never seen before stepped into view. It's hard to describe just how strange he looked. His forehead was flat, with not 1 but 2 strands of hair dangling over his eyes. His nose stuck out instead of lying flat like it should, and he had almost no body hair at all. His teeth were bright white and filled his mouth completely. He was the ugliest thing I'd ever seen. I couldn't fathom why Fug would let this bizarre creature lay a hand on her gorgeous body. Without hesitation, the man approached Fug. I watched in utter disbelief, my head stuck in the hole above. He hugged Fug tightly, and before long, he was on top of her, lying between her legs. They were facing each other as if he was trying to pile on top of her, but at a snail's pace. This must have been irritating Fug. Her nails dug into his back as she wrapped her legs around him, slapping her heels against his rear. Watching this, I could only feel relief. Fug wasn't giving in to this freak. She was fighting him off. After a few minutes, the man collapsed beside her, drenched in sweat, his arousal clearly gone. Fug smiled, victorious in her battle. How could I have doubted her? I felt like such a fool. Now all I could think about was getting revenge on this mutant who dared try to claim my loyal Fug. That creature would pay and pay dearly. The thought of what he'd tried to do to my beloved drove me wild with rage. And just like that, for all the clueless idiots still here for the rest of the story, I invented fire. It turned out to be the perfect accompaniment to Fug's and my first roast beast dinner. It was delicious, and we thoroughly enjoyed it together.